Good afternoon, everyone. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to our Quality Teaching Rounds Evidence for Stronger Teacher Induction webinar. My name's Beth Filippo and I'm an advisor here at the Quality Teaching Academy at the University of Newcastle, and I'm going to be moderating this afternoon's webinar. I'd like to start by acknowledging that we're coming together from a range of Aboriginal lands, all unceded. I'm presenting from the land of the Pambalong clan of the Awabakal Nation here at the Callaghan campus of the Uni, and I'd like to acknowledge elders past and present and extend that respect to any Indigenous colleagues here with us today. Before I introduce our speakers, just a little bit of housekeeping. This session will be recorded and a link to the recording will be made available to all registered participants mid to late next week. The chat functionality is enabled, so you have space to interact with colleagues. We've got people joining this webinar from most states and territories in Australia and even a few registrations from people internationally. If you'd like to say hello in the chat, because we can't see your face, it'll be really great to know who's here and where you're from. The Q&A function is where we encourage you to post any questions that can be addressed at the end of the webinar. You can upvote or comment on these and we'll prioritise those with the most votes. Live captions are enabled. If you'd like to use them, you can click the Show Captions button at the bottom of your screen. Okay, so this afternoon I'm joined by Nick Ward, Deputy Principal at Moruya High School, who will share his school's experience participating in the Strengthening Induction through Quality Teaching Rounds project and the practical impact that QTR has had on teachers at every stage of their career at Maruya. We're also joined by Distinguished Laureate Professor Jenny Gore AM, who'll be leading this webinar on supporting teachers in the classroom. Jenny's the Director of the Teachers and Teaching Research Centre at the University of Newcastle and President of the Australian Association for Research in Education. This afternoon, Jenny's going to lay out some of the research from the University of Newcastle on the state of induction for early career teachers in Australia, and she'll also share some of the latest findings from an Australian government-funded project on strengthening induction through the award-winning Quality Teaching Rounds project. Towards the end of this afternoon, we're going to hear from Nick, and like I mentioned before, you'll have the opportunity to post questions using the Q&A function. So without further ado, please allow me to welcome Distinguished Laureate Professor Jenny Gore.
Thanks, Beth. I just want to begin by acknowledging the team of people who've been involved in this work. These sorts of projects are never done by individuals, so you can see the names of those who are colleagues on this work listed there. Why are we focusing on induction? I mean, the federal government's actually been interested in how we do induction well since at least the late 1970s, and there was a lot of research, particularly around the 1990s and 2000s, that basically said effective induction reduces attrition, which is a huge issue for us right now with the teacher shortage, increases job satisfaction, and has positive impact on student outcomes. So, there's a real reason to focus on this. But the research also found that the success of induction really depends a lot on the number and the kinds of support that's provided. I'll come back to that in a moment. There were national guidelines introduced by AITSL in 2016, and they were just recently updated. The idea is to really support teachers to go from that graduate stage to proficient stage over typically a 2-year period. And the model of effective induction that AITSL talks about at the moment has these 5 components: so mentoring, professional practices, workplace and community orientation, relationships, and wellbeing. And I think all of you who are involved in induction in some way or another will see that these 5 pieces are part of what we need to think about with successful induction. We found, however, and this is Australian teacher workforce data, that only 55% of early career teachers across the whole of Australia reported receiving any kind of formal induction. And that was down from 61% in 2019. And I think with the whole permission to teach sort of policy and mechanisms that we have in place at the moment, that we're possibly seeing even less provision of induction experiences. Not only have we seen a reduction in the number of teachers getting induction, we're seeing that the range of activities provided have really been reduced down to some kind of orientation and typically the allocation of a mentor. And so if we look at the teacher workforce data, you can see here the colours go by year. So the purple is 2023. You see orientation and mentoring are still the dominant forms of activity provided, but even experienced teacher observation has dropped significantly, as has targeted professional learning, internal networking, and so on. So there's that real change in what's provided. And that this is just the school activities, and we're talking about early career teachers in this particular data set with 1 to 2 years of experience. But it does send some worrying signs about what's happening in induction. The Strengthening Induction through Quality Teaching Rounds project that we're talking about today was funded federally as part of the National Teacher Workforce Action Plan. It's one of the initiatives in that program, and it's really providing free, so effectively the federal government is paying for professional development in quality teaching rounds for 1,600 additional teachers, typically in groups of 4. And each group of 4 needs to include 2 early career teachers who we define as within their first 3 years, and at least 1 teacher who's more experienced. And schools can sign up to be a part of this project with just 1 group of 4, or they can have many groups of 4, providing they have those 2 early career teachers in each of the groups. And I should say 2 different early career teachers, not the same ones. And schools can actually join together as well if you don't have enough early career teachers. So what is quality teaching rounds? For anyone who's unfamiliar, I'm just going to run through this really quickly. But it is an approach to professional development that's designed to empower teachers to empower each other. We see doing ourselves out of a job as our main goal, obsolescence, because teachers can do this for themselves. It's all based on the quality teaching model, which has these 3 big ideas: that learning experiences should have a level of intellectual depth or rigor or quality, that there needs to be an environment that really supports learning, and that learning should be made significant beyond just learning for the sake of school. It's connected to students' lives and to the wider world. We found very quickly that just having a model wasn't enough. We needed a powerful way to work with it. And this is where quality teaching rounds effectively brings together what we've learned about effective professional learning communities with some of the work that's been done on other forms of rounds, like instructional rounds, but having that quality teaching model there as well lifts it beyond the kind of structures that are put in place and the relational aspects of teacher professional development, and adds in this really substantive conceptual and practical framework of the quality teaching model. So teachers come together and they discuss something one of them has selected, and it really is designed to build that new shared knowledge among teachers, because we all have different backgrounds and experiences, but also to start to build a sense of community among the 4 teachers involved. They then go and watch one teacher teach an entire lesson. We always watch whole lessons because we believe it's more respectful of teachers and of the teaching learning process to watch a whole lesson. Walkthroughs have their place, of course, but if you want to look at the learning that's happening, it's really important to see the whole. Teachers then code the lesson, including the teacher who taught the lesson, which is a really important part of our model. It's not us giving you feedback, it's us using the chance to go into each other's classrooms to look at our collective pedagogy and how we might refine it. And then the group comes back together to discuss the lesson, trying to agree on the best code on our 1 to 5 coding scales, not because the numbers are critical, it's because it leads to really fine-grained, specific, rich conversations about how practice can be improved. The work that we're doing builds on 2 decades of really rigorous research. So some of you may have even been involved in the SEPA study, Systemic Implications of Pedagogy and Achievement, where we looked at the quality of classroom and assessment practice. In 2009, we did a study with the Parramatta Catholic Education Office looking at rounds for the first time. We had 8 teachers in a group there who were all released from their daily work to come together, and they did that for 3 years. We then worked with the ACT in 2012. They said, we can't release 8 teachers for 8 days a year. Can we have a mini minor version, if that's the Rolls-Royce version? So we said, you have to have at least 3 people in a group, and we don't think you can do rounds in any less than half a day. And basically, we found teachers loved the approach regardless of how it was done. In 2014, the New South Wales Department funded our first randomised controlled trial. Randomised controlled trials allow you to make some causal claims, not just talk about correlations. And what we found is it had a significant impact on the quality of teaching and on how teachers felt about their work, positive impacts. The Paul Ramsay Foundation then funded us in 2018 with $17.2 million, which was one of the largest grants ever awarded to educational research in Australia. And in that program, we did 4 more randomised controlled trials, as well as a whole lot of other data collection and a whole lot of other things as well that I won't talk about now. You then see in 2023 the federal government funding for this induction project, and in 24 the Ramsay Foundation funded us to work with 20 of the most disadvantaged schools in New South Wales to try and really look at whole school change. What we've found with all of this research, and this is obviously a very synthesized view on 20 years or more worth of studies that we've done, but it has had a significant impact on student achievement. We're seeing 2 to 3 months additional growth compared to matched control groups in literacy and numeracy. That's using progressive achievement tests, if people are familiar with those. And we've seen slightly greater benefits for students in the lower ICSEA and other disadvantaged categories. So the potential to do something about equity, we're seeing that being realised. We're also seeing improvements in the quality of teaching, teacher morale, and teacher efficacy and confidence. Interestingly, that's not just in our early career teachers, but all teachers, which is really exciting. We've seen greater collaboration among teachers and really purposeful collaboration. We've seen, as a result, improvements in school culture, and we've seen whole school change. Some of you might be familiar with the work we did with Cessnock High School that went from well below state average in NAPLAN value add to, I believe they're now number 7 in the state for growth, which is really impressive in a school with 75% of students in the bottom SES quartile and 25% of students who are Indigenous in that school. And the other things to note are that this approach is really broadly applicable from kindergarten through to year 12. We're actually using it in universities as well to enhance the quality of higher education. It's available for delivery face-to-face, but also fully online. And we've tested in one of our randomised controlled trials, 4 teachers coming from 4 different schools, recording a lesson and doing all of the processes online. And Deloitte did a cost-benefit analysis that found really significant return on investment. So this Strengthening Induction project, as I said, 4 teachers per school, and all you need to do is to find one group of teachers who are willing to give this a go just to see how it works in your place. So far, we've had more than 1,200 teachers from nearly 280 schools from every state and territory in the country participate in this research project, which is terrific. It was set out to be a national project. You can see we've had many more teachers from New South Wales, for example, than some of the other states and territories, but it's great to get that national coverage. It's also a cross-sectoral project involving government, Catholic and independent schools. If you want to be involved in the research, all we need is principal consent as well as 4 teachers. We ask the teachers to do 2 10-minute surveys, probably less than 10 minutes, a week apart before they begin. They come to a 2-day workshop. They don't all have to come to the same workshop. So if releasing 4 teachers is hard for you, and we realise that's the case for many schools, you might send 2 to a face-to-face one, and then 2 might do it online on a separate occasion. The teachers then do their rounds across a 4-day period, typically a week apart. We recommend maybe 2 weeks is a really good time frame. So the entire process can happen over the course of one term quite easily. The teachers then do 2 post-QTR surveys. We do 2 rather than 1 because we know that people can have especially great and especially ordinary days. And so looking at how people respond at 2 different time points, we're able to kind of average those responses. And it's called a interrupted time series design, but it gives you slightly better data. And then we're also interviewing a subset of teachers and school leaders to talk with them about the impact in their own places. What we're seeing is massive improvement, statistically significant improvement in efficacy. And what you can see here, beginning teachers in blue and more experienced teachers in grey, is that the gains are roughly equivalent for both groups. So this is not something that just impacts on your early career teachers. The experienced teachers who are involved seem to get much the same benefits in terms of how they feel about their practice. We see teacher well-being overall here, but burnout going down, particularly for early career teachers, and that's really important. We want to see that line going down, and the others around shared vision, trust and respect, and teacher well-being, all, if anything, at least in a positive direction. So the effects are positive. When we've gone back to teachers who did rounds as part of this project, at least a year later, so some of them had done rounds 12 months earlier, some almost as much as 24 months later, we found that 100% of the teachers said that quality teaching rounds had had a positive impact on their teaching. 99% said the model was still shaping their practice. 96% said it had had this positive impact on their sense of belonging to the profession, and 98% said it had a positive effect on their relationships with colleagues. I mean, they're quite remarkable results and really exciting for us to see that kind of an impact. We also asked teachers if they had any intention to leave the profession within the next 6 months at each of the survey time points. Of those who had some intention to leave, and it was about 40% of all the teachers who said they had some intention to leave. Sorry, it wasn't about 40% of the teachers. The smaller number of teachers who had some intention to leave, at the end of the study, 40% of those now said they had zero intention to leave, which is a really important impact. And of those who were in the high or severe intention to leave category, so on a scale of 1 to 10, they rated themselves 8 or 9 or 10. Almost 2/3 of those now have no intention to leave. Similarly, in that annual survey, we asked teachers about the positive impact on their intention to stay in teaching. And you can see that 6% said not at all, but we have substantial numbers of teachers who are saying that doing rounds had a positive impact on their intention to stay. Hopefully, I'm not going too quickly through all of this. The interviews we've done with teachers really consistently show these 4 main positive effects. So teachers feel that they're more knowledgeable about good teaching, that they're changing aspects of their practice and feeling like that's a real refinement. They feel really positive about the relationships they're forming. We typically do rounds with people from different stages or different year levels or different faculties of a school, and so really strong professional relationships, and those people continue to collaborate after they've done their rounds, and that really positive sense of well-being. Just to give you a couple of quotes, Portia here, a young teacher with 2 years of experience, said, "Last year I was experiencing difficulties and struggling to stay motivated, but when you start observing and gaining perspective from other people and getting feedback, it reinvigorates and re-inspires you to keep doing your best, which then improves student achievement and engagement." And one other, here we have Bree, who said before rounds it was so overwhelming, so isolating. I didn't actually know if the 4 years of university were worth it. But after doing all of this, meaning QTR, I realised now I can actually get there. And she says, "I love what I do." And these are really typical responses that we're finding. So this brings me almost to the close. I've talked primarily about the research stream where you need principal consent for teachers, the free workshop, the pre and post surveys, and in-school rounds are part of that process. It's also possible to come into the project without participating in the research. Now that we're in our final year, it's less necessary for us to have people participate in the research, even though we'd still love it. So if you don't want to do the research, you just drop out the surveys effectively, but the rest of it is still provided. You still get the free PD. We still need you to do one set of rounds for one group of 4 teachers. We also have recently opened this up to teachers. We had quite a lot of casual teachers and individual teachers say that they'd love to be part of this study. If teachers want to sign up individually, obviously they would have to not do in-school rounds. The rounds would have to be done digitally, meaning using our online resources and mechanisms. And the teachers would do this in their own time, working with colleagues from different schools. But there's a way that we can quite easily get you signed up to do that if you'd love to have this experience as an individual, even if you can't get your school involved. So if you do want to get involved in any of those ways, you can certainly send in an EOI. We only have, what is it now, about 400 places remaining and about 12 months to go. So once those 1,600 places are expended, the free PD drops away and people will have to pay for the PD, which in the end is only about, I think, $950. Is that right, Beth? Per person for the 2-day workshop that's provided. Anyway, I hope that's given you a quick overview. I've taken 3 minutes too long, I think. So I'm going to hand back to you, Beth, hear from Nick, and I'll hang around for any questions that people might have.
Thanks, Jenny. I think you're right on time. I'll go with that. All righty. So now we're going to hear from Nick, who's joining us from Moruya High School. Hi, Nick. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello.
How are you?
I can't complain. I'm quite excited to talk about what we've been doing.
Excellent. Could you start by just explaining the context of Moruya High School for us? Give us a picture of what it's like, please.
Of course. So we are a school on the south coast of New South Wales, about 4 hours south of Sydney. We are in Yuin country. We have about 350 students. Of those, about 20% identify as either Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander. We're very unique. We've got 7 support unit classes. And we also have a high proportion of part-time teachers. So a lot of part-time teachers, a very low staff turnover. And that is our school context. It's a great school down the south coast and it's great to work at.
Sounds lovely. Thank you. What attracted you to quality teaching rounds and what was the process of getting it started at Maruya?
Great question. So ours is kind of a journey. I signed up to do QTR, must have been pre-COVID, and it was postponed at my previous school. And I kept getting the emails. And then in 2024, I got the email and I said to some colleagues, shall we go on this professional learning? I don't know much about it. Let's do it. So me and 4 people, we went up to Sydney in November and Kate did the presentation. And we were like, wow, this is amazing. I should say the 3 other people who came with me, they did go to Newcastle Uni and they knew it and they were aware of it, but it was kind of like a refresher. And us 4 who did it, we then did a pilot PLC in 2025, a professional learning community. We were 4 teachers in English, a PE, a TAS, and myself as a HISI teacher. And we absolutely loved it. We did it in semester 1. And then we saw this would be great for the school. How do we get buy-in? How do we get the staff to do it? So what we did was that we reached out and we said, how can we get our staff trained up? And we really wanted to hear straight from the horse's mouth rather than the second hand or third hand. And we were very fortunate. We had some spare professional learning money. So rather than sending 11 staff up to Sydney to do the training, we actually had you guys come down to us. So we were very excited about that. And we ended up partnering up with Naruma. So we worked with them and we did a training. I think about 7 or 8 staff from our school went on it and they absolutely loved it. So then in the second half of 2025, we had 11 people do it. So we started with 1 PLC in semester 1 last year, and then in semester 2 we had 3 PLCs. So we had 11 people. So that was kind of our journey. And then this year is where it's really taken off. We had Rob come down from you guys, and he did a whole day professional learning to our staff. We went off site, and for a whole day, we were given the crash course, basically 2 days condensed into one, and all staff were taught how to do it and how it worked. And then from there, we made it optional. I really want to stress this wasn't mandated, it wasn't required, but rather because we didn't want it to feel punitive. Rather, we wanted to build interest, engagement. We wanted people to really love it. So out of that, we've got 29 staff doing it, which is pretty impressive. Just over half of our school is doing QTR this year. We had 4 groups in semester 1, and we've got 5 groups in semester 2. So we are really excited. In fact, we had 2 today. So that's kind of been our journey of what we've been doing.
Wow, that is full steam ahead. Well done. That's impressive. Thanks, Nick. You've recently had an interview published in the Education Matters magazine, and in that interview you spoke about your sister, who's a paramedic, and the different ways they collaborate and reflect on practice. What makes that comparison with teaching so stark for you?
Yes, it was, and it just popped up in conversation with the magazine author. My sister's a paramedic, and she is every day, in an ambulance with another paramedic, and they are constantly talking, debriefing. They go out to a patient and they work out what is the best way to do it. As teaching, or when I started teaching, I was just put in a classroom, and I remember my first year of teaching, I was observed twice. I loved it, I really enjoyed it, but I wasn't too sure what I was doing right or what I was wrong, and I was like, oh. So we saw this as a real opportunity for our staff. So I really see it different. And this is a way for us to collaborate and talk about pedagogy. And that is the thing we absolutely love about QTR at our school. We really love that it's a focus, that we're having conversations about pedagogy. The group code at the end really is the most important thing. And the way I really sell it is the lesson is a means to have a conversation about pedagogy. Really, that is the point. And we were told that we went in the training, it's just a mean to have a conversation. And if you're doing 3 or 4 rounds, you're having those conversations 3 or 4 times, and we absolutely love it. And by doing that, you're going through the model 3 or 4 times, and you start to know it inside out, back to front, and it makes you think about it. And then I think about my own teaching practice. Myself, the ones which I'm really focusing on now is I'm doing some more meta language. If I'm doing something, I'll break down some language. I think, I could do that in my class. It's making myself a better teacher. Or whether it be narrative, really trying to make it a story in the class, whether it be the high expectation. So by doing the round so many times, I do the model so many times. So therefore, in my own practice, I'm constantly reflecting and reflecting. So that is what we are finding. So yeah.
Awesome, thank you. What have you found challenging about implementing QTR, and how have you tackled those challenges?
Yes, look, I will say one of the challenges was the staffing. Now, I have a very unique role. I'm also the head teacher admin, so I look after the casual. So to allow to succeed, so instead of going back and forth with the head teacher admin, I just do it myself. So cover can be hard. And one of the biggest criticisms I've had from staff is I'm missing classes. And I know in semester 1, I was in a professional learning community and I missed some class and the other teachers identified it. And it's true. The way to get over that is we sit down and we look at our timetables and we see when is the best time to do it. When is the best time to have the minimal impact? We don't want to touch those year 12 classes. We don't want to beat our seniors. Really planning. This week, I've had 2 groups today. I had 1 group on Monday. We're doing it this week because we've got the year 12 trials on and we've got the year 11 on camp. So it actually made it easier in terms of covers. I acknowledge it is lots of work organising casuals. Teachers are constantly having to set lessons. So we try to be very strategic. That being said, at the same time, we really take on board the advice we got from Kate and Rob. We do it a round in a day. We don't follow up the following day. We do it in a day. So it's one succinct thing done. So it's not carried over. And I've been very hesitant to the whole recording thing. We haven't been recording it. We're in the classroom watching the whole thing. And that has been key.
Why do you think that's key? Because I know you were also really passionate about your staff doing the workshop face-to-face. You didn't want that online either.
Look, I was a bit cheeky. We did our professional learning off-site and we went to the local surf club and it was great. And I didn't tell them the Wi-Fi password. But it meant that they had to pay attention for the whole day. And some of the staff were like, oh, this is really good. So it really made us focus on the pedagogy. We are constantly being interrupted. There's constantly things done, but very rarely do we have such rich discussions about pedagogy. And what I love, and I've been in teaching for a while, we've had fads come and go. This has been around for like 20 years. So it works. That's what we like about it. It works. It's evidence-based, and it's just been around for so long. It was interesting. Must have been the first year that we were doing it. I was talking to a colleague in the TAS staff room about how we're doing QTR. And one of the teachers in the back piped up and said, "Oh my God, that's amazing. I did it at Broken Hill. It's the best thing in the world." I want to emphasize, it was getting teacher buy-in. It was not mandated. I will be honest, some teachers said to me, "Nick, I don't want to do this." I said, "That's absolutely fine. I respect that." If it had been mandated, I feel like it wouldn't have been successful. When I do the groups, I was very strategic in how I did the groups, and I tried to also make it cross-faculty. The next thing I'll say, I'm going a bit of a rant here, but a detour, but I will say, I mentioned that we have 7, I don't know if I mentioned, we have 7 support unit classes. One of the comments that in our 7 support unit classes, we have a range including intellectual disability of severe and moderate, so quite severe disabilities. Some of my staff have been like, "I had no idea this is what those staff do." They are loving seeing the different parts of the school. And so when we'd set up the QTR groups, they are cross-faculty. So I had a languages and English one and a support unit teacher, and they love seeing the different contexts. What I loved was actually with my group is I was seeing my kids in different contexts and different classes to see how they behave and what they do. When I had my one, I remember I had some boys in the back and they were talking, and my people who observed it said, "Nick, they're actually talking about your content." I was like, "Oh." So it's been really good to collaborate in different KLAs. So in different KLAs, we aren't being siloed and just talking about that pedagogy. That is what I love. And it's so easy to code. We go through every page and we follow the norms to the T. The person reads it, go around. We've found it really well. The only thing we've added to make it a bit more interesting is when we do the group coding, someone has to bring baked goods. So it really is, but it really means we're having these, like, at no other times have we had such rich discussions about pedagogy for like an hour. That hour of the group coding is the best thing that we love doing.
Wow. My next question was key benefits, but I think you've just, laid them all out there for us. Thank you, Nick. Jenny, do you have any questions or comments for Nick?
I think I'd be interested to know the impact on your students, Nick.
Look, I don't have that data off the top of my head. Some anecdotal things I would say is that students are like, "Oh, teachers are popping in and out," and they're in for the whole lesson as well. The kids have actually noticed that we're in there for the whole lesson. You're like, "Oh, you guys talk. Oh, you guys collaborate." Yeah, we do. So I think the kids have seen that, and they've actually seen some slight changes in the way that we teach, whether it be that meta language, whether it be that inclusivity or the narrative. I'm a big fan of the narrative going along those lines. What I will also say, I've got to mention 2 other things. Sorry, Jenny. Was that this aligned perfectly basically to our school plan. It aligned perfectly to our plan for public education. And we're also a HPGE partner school, which is great for our high potential and gifted kids. It aligned perfectly with that. So it basically aligns with what we were doing at the moment. That's what we really loved.
When you say aligns, does it also help with those things?
Yes.
Because I think a lot of people are nervous that they have departmental directives that say you should be doing this. So you want it to be able to fit. But I guess I'm interested in the extent to which it actually goes beyond that to actually help you with those goals that you're trying to deliver on.
So yes. So for example, we are a public school in New South Wales, and we have a current focus on explicit teaching. And it works and aligns perfectly to explicit quality criteria and engagement. It aligns perfectly to our Department of Education's What Works Best CC stuff, all about high expectation. It aligns to that. It aligns to, by what I like to say, it's not something extra, it complements it really well. And that's the language that I use.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks, Nick. That's really just so happy to hear your passion for it, because that's kind of how we feel about it too, and certainly how I felt about it in schools before I came into this position. So I was lucky enough to have done several rounds. All right, just reminding everybody that there is the Q&A function. If you have any questions for Nick or for Jenny, you please feel free to pop those into there. We did have a lady comment from Perth. Michelle. Thanks, Michelle. She does PL for teachers in Western Australia and uses Richard Elmore's theory, Jenny. And so she's really excited to learn about what we're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it builds on Elmore's work very directly, the instructional rounds work, but it's a bit more structured in that instructional rounds typically ask teachers what they want to focus on or what they noticed when they visited one another's schools or classrooms. We ask teachers to think about the 3 dimensions, and underneath the 3 dimensions, the 18 elements of the quality teaching model. So I think I would say that with instructional rounds, it's a bit more hit and miss as to what teachers talk about, because it depends who's in your group and what they bring to it. But with quality teaching rounds, the emphasis, as Nick said, is very much on talking about pedagogy and a whole lot of things that are familiar to teachers that we do almost instinctively, but it really draws out that attention and I think enables new insights to be formed as a result of that. But yeah, really interested. And I'm coming over to Perth shortly and hopefully doing a workshop there later this year. So might meet you then, Michelle.
I'm sure she'd love that. Fantastic. Any other questions from any participants?
I've just got one, Beth, for you, perhaps.
Yes.
I know there are a number of casual teachers who are interested in this,
yes.
This actual workshop. So can you say more about how QTR Digital works for people who want to come in as teachers, whether that's casual or otherwise practicing teachers?
Sure. The plan we have for those particular teachers is to run quality teaching rounds digitally, which means recording a lesson and then sharing it at another time. So perhaps you're teaching one day, you record your lesson and then you distribute that to the other PLC members who watch and code it in their time and then come together for the coding discussion. That can either be in person or digitally as well, depending on where your PLC members are situated. So when individual teachers or casual teachers approach us for the project, we'll work with them to find them a PLC that works for them and works for their situation, depending on what department they're working in.
Thanks. We did do one study just with casual teachers as well. It was funded by the New South Wales Department, but it was really fascinating to see the positive effects on casuals who often miss out on professional development, but it impacted on the quality of their teaching, their real sense of belonging to the profession, the networks that they had. And they also commented that it impacted a lot on the extent to which they felt they were actually able to teach and not just mind classes, which can sometimes be what casual teachers end up feeling.
That is true. We've also got Martina with us from the Netherlands today, Jenny, and it might be interesting to talk a little bit about what's happening in QTR in other countries.
Yeah, we've completed one project in Sweden. There's another one happening in Sweden right now, and one in Germany, and one in Scotland that's just happened. These are kind of countries that in many ways have come to us and they've said, we've heard about this work and we'd love to give it a try. So it's really exciting to see that kind of work going on. And we're also in the process of seeking funding for a big project in England. And then there's all kinds of other countries who we've connected with on this work. So as examples, Albania, Indonesia, Vanuatu, Solomon Islands, Taiwan, the Maldives, a whole range of different places, Japan, China. So it's great to see that there's really rigorous evidence that we've gathered over time, and the really positive impact on teachers who are saying, as Nick did, that they're loving it for their kind of professional well-being, but sense of themselves. It's just great to see that that's been picked up and experienced elsewhere in the world as well.
It was really lovely when Michelle came back from the first trip to Sweden. Her key insight was they talk about the same things because it's teaching. Yeah. We talk about the same things, which is great. Martina's question in a follow-up to that is, what, in your experience, are good ways to motivate teachers to join QTR? I can answer that from a school perspective. We had 4 people initially who wanted to be part of it. And Kate actually interviewed a principal today who said there's a hum in the school, there's a buzz. And that's certainly what happened with us. We started with the people who really wanted to do it, and the buzz in the staff room and the positivity from the people who were doing it motivated others to want to become involved.
Absolutely agree. The only thing I'd add is that some teachers are in fact motivated by the data and the evidence that we have as well. So particularly for those scientifically minded colleagues, to see the difference that this is making, to get 2 to 3 months additional growth in one school year on standardized tests of maths or reading is pretty dramatic and really exciting. So that's the other thing that can get people really tuned in.
Awesome. Thank you. Nick, sorry, just going back to the casual teachers comment, Nick's just said that he got his long-term casual teachers. So often schools do have, main casuals that are there for a lot of the time or a lot of the year. So all of their long-term casual teachers attended the one-day workshop, and they said it was great for them to feel included and understand, the classes that they're covering and their colleagues. So that's a nice benefit for casual teachers.
It is. And I think, ultimately what we're trying to do here is to encourage people who haven't yet given this a go to make use of that federal funding to come on board and, just find 4 teachers, if you can, who might be able to participate in this kind of initiative. And as I say, you can join schools together and join teachers together in a whole range of ways. I've jumped to this slide because I'm mindful of the time. I think we're due to finish at 4:45.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to put that phone number up there if it's easier for you, just to call our people. By all means, write down the number. But we also still have time for another question or two if anyone has those. I'm assuming you all got that number if you needed it. We can write it in the chat anyway. Does anyone have anything else? Any concerns, worries, questions? There's never a silly question. There's a lot of information we tried to throw into that short time period. Thanks, Beth.
It's all right. I'm just popping the email and phone number into the chat.
Awesome.
Any other questions? Will the slides be available is a question. The slides
Yes.
will come with the presentation in the video. So yes. Thank you, Michelle. All right. We must have been so thorough. There's no questions.
That's great.
Awesome. Oh, hang on. Let's see what's down here. Thank you from Ursula. Thank you for joining us, everybody. It's been lovely to hear Nick's experiences, but to also hear the really rich research and evidence that's been happening around quality teaching rounds and our induction project. So thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Nick. Thank you,
Thanks,
Jenny.
Nick. Pleasure. Bye, everyone.
Please be in contact if we can help at all.
QT Academy, empowering teachers to empower each other.